Hey guys, it's Mr. Carpenter. This is Chapter 9, Lesson 3. You know the deal. Watch the video, answer the questions on Canvas, and earn your sticker. Let's jump right in. So we have a lot of different things to talk about in Lesson 3. Um, the Continental Army and Navy received a lot of help from individual citizens. These aren't professional soldiers. These are people who are not in the military. They helped with spy work and setting traps for the British. They really were involved, even though they weren't actually being paid as a soldier. Nathan Hale, served as a spy for the Americans in New York City, and he has some of the most famous words in American history. And those are, "I regret that I had but one life to lose for my country." John Paul Jones was surrounded, and they begged him to surrender, and he stated, "I have not yet begun to fight," and continued to fight until the British actually surrendered. So he is a naval hero in American history. You have Mary Ludwig, also known as Molly Pitcher. She brought water to the troops, and then when her husband was injured in battle, she took over loading cannons. And Tetsu Kosciuszko volunteered to help the Continental Army, and he actually ended up planning a fort at West Point, which is now where military officers actually go, which is now part of the U.S. Military Academy. Let's talk actually about the war now. So the British learned that the French were aiding the Americans and decided that they really should move south, where there were many more loyalists in the south. And the British hoped that those loyalists would help them in the fighting. The British also hoped to capture southern ports that they could receive more supplies, because the South was definitely more agrarian, more agriculture, and hopefully more food, cut that off from the North, those type of things. But the British found instead that fighting away from the water, fighting inland, was very difficult. It was easy for the Patriots to cut supply lines as they moved inland. They lost several battles along the frontier, which included at Vincennes here in Indiana, which that was considered the frontier at the time, not the Midwest. In 1778, 3,500 soldiers attacked Savannah, Georgia. The British took Charleston, which is now Charlestown, in South Carolina. And in 1781, Benedict Arnold, the former Patriot who helped win the second battle that we learned about in the last unit, began working for the British. He started attacks on Virginia towns, and really Arnold became a traitor because he felt that Washington wasn't giving his fair due, that he should be higher up than what he was, and so he became a turncoat, a traitor, because he didn't feel like he was getting treated fairly. American forces lost a number of battles, but even though they didn't lose their spirit. So General Nathanael Greene, "We fight, get beat, rise, and fight again," which led Daniel Morgan to win a victory at Cowpens, which is in South Carolina, in January of 1781. This was a turning point that showed that the Americans could win in the South as well. In 1781, in March of that same year, at Gulliford Courthouse, the British held the field, so it was kind of a standstill. They didn't lose ground, but they were significantly weakened at that point. And what really led, and this isn't a major point, so this final point down here in this bottom right-hand corner, the British, even when they were winning battles, learned they could not win the war since there was no one city, town, or place that was the heart of America, because they weren't their own country yet. It was mobile, so even though the British held New York, they held Philadelphia, the colonists refused to give in. There was not one central place. The British said, "If we take this, the war's over." And that was one of the major factors in the actual conflict and why America won. War ends 1781. Cornwallis is surrounded at Yorktown with French and American troops. Cornwallis surrendered in October of 1781. Well, that was the last major battle. There were smaller skirmishes that continued into 1782. But then finally, America and British forces decided to sit down to make a treaty in Paris. Those people that were helped for the American side were John Jay, Benjamin Franklin, and John Adams. They wanted the British to recognize American independence. They wanted America to be recognized as its own separate country, which was a big deal. And in addition, they all wanted British forces out. Um, these negotiations took over a year. Finally, the Treaty of Paris was signed September 3rd of 1781. The treaty named the United States as a new nation and set the country's new border. It stretched from Georgia in the south to the Great Lakes in the north, and the Mississippi River was the nation's western border. After the war was over, George Washington left his home in Virginia. He went and stopped in at Congress, and he retired, saying that he had done what he needed to do for the country, and Congress thanked him. And we know that is not the end of George Washington's journey with the new American continent. Thanks, guys.